Hello. IBD can be a lonely, scary experience. So today I wanted to help you feel less isolated by sharing my experiences living with ulcerative colitis for 10 years and answering your questions while we're at it. And to help bring this conversation to life visually, I couldn't think of a better game that shows the power of overcoming isolation and thriving despite your setbacks than Dark Souls. So I'm going to be playing this at the same time as answering your questions. So let's get into it. So the first question I've got here, am I loading? The first question I've got here is, how did you first realise something was wrong and that you might have ulcerative colitis? And I've loaded into a random game here. I wanted to make a new character. So the first things that I realised were wrong was that I was bleeding and that I needed to go to the bathroom quite frequently. But it's weird because going back into your character name, going back, the first signs that I noticed that I had ulcerative colitis was when I was in school, and I would basically, well, going back to primary school, this is just a whole tangent, but when I was in primary school, I remember using the bathroom and someone climbed over, looked at me in the bathroom cubicle, and that made me feel so like sort of violated in a way that when I grew up and I was in secondary school, I did everything I could to avoid using the toilet there for a number two. What I'd do is I'd hold it in the whole way, and it would be like this immense pain as I was walking home, huge amounts of pain. And yeah, and then I'd go use the bathroom and I would see some like bright red blood, but I thought nothing of it because I just assumed that it was it was hemorrhoids or something. I don't know what I assumed at the time. I didn't think it could have been any sort of bowel disease. Well, I didn't even know what bowel disease was. That was the main problem. But yeah, so I'd walk home from school and it would be like this intense agony. And I'd have to stand there and literally be like, oh, I'm in so much pain. And then the pain would rise and then I'd carry on walking. So funny. I'm just opening it. And then I'd keep walking and I'd get a few steps and then the pain would rise again. Just got to remember how to play. It's been a long time. But yeah, so I'd be in this cycle of walking, being in pain. And I don't think that that's a very normal thing to experience, to be honest. The thing is, I feel it was probably self-induced because I was holding in, needing go to the bathroom. But then some people can go for days without using the bathroom. And then for me, it's just like, even just holding it in for one day, it's immense amounts of pain. And then there was this time when I went on a holiday with my dad. And we went to Amsterdam at the time. How old was I? I must have been maybe 14 or something. We were staying at this campsite. And they had these sort of public toilets, so like maybe let's say 6 cubicles of where you could sit down and go to the bathroom. And yeah, I'd get in there and I'd sit on the toilet, and it'd just be I couldn't go. I just couldn't go. I'd sit there and like all these people would be around me, and I'd just be like, I can't go to the bathroom. And then I'd hold that in, and we was in Amsterdam for, I think, 4 days, and I didn't go for a number two once the whole time I was there. I was in, like, great pain. And I think those sort of things, when I think about it, it's like, did I bring my inflammatory bowel disease on myself through my own decisions? Okay, so you just run through here. I have played this game before, but it's been a long time. But yes. So, to answer that question, how did you first realise something was wrong and that you might have ulcerative colitis? when I look back that early, I think it was sort of through my weird decisions. Not that I think it might have caused it, maybe. I don't know. It's hard to say, but that's like an indication something's wrong. It's not often you hear of people holding in a number 2 for 4 days and being in complete pain. Just equipped its item. So the next question, what was the diagnosis process like for you? So for me, it was a case of trying to get an appointment with the doctor, which was a pain in itself. And then once I actually saw the doctor, she had no idea what inflammatory bowel disease was. It was just a GP. And the GP I had at the time just sort of seemed like she absolutely hated her job. Like she didn't want to be there. She always seemed quite like exasperated and annoyed to see me. Like she was just like, oh, not this guy again. Because I'm a bit of a hypochondriac. I go into the doctors. Oh, God. Oh, flip. I go to the doctors a number of times down here and try and get appointments and try and get things looked at. But anyway, the diagnosis process for me was once I saw the doctor, she was basically confused. I said, I've been going to the bathroom and I was bleeding a lot. And I said, you know, it just comes out of me. And she's like, you're pushing too hard on the toilet. And I was like, not pushing at all. Like, it just comes out. So, you know, I was annoyed at that point. Because I'm like, literally, I'm not pushing in the slightest. So she prescribed me codeine. And I believe her rationale for prescribing me codeine was that it can give you constipation. It's locked. What am I doing here? I've completely forgotten where to go. Yeah, so anyway, he was just trying to give me constipation to stop me going to the toilet. So I took the codeine and then getting distracted by this guy talking. I'll just skip this. So I took the codeine, nothing happened. Didn't help in the slightest. And then I went back to the doctor and she's like, okay, I'll refer you to, I think it was a gastroenterologist. I could have sworn you get a key for this here. I completely forgotten where to go. So basically I got a referral. I think there's the key. And then I eventually see, I go to hospital and I see a specialist. And what they do is they then say, right, we've got to give you a test. We're going to put a camera up your bum. So they get an endoscope. I get a bit confused because I've heard that actually there's 2 endoscopies. Like one you can have down your throat if they want to check your lungs or anything. And then obviously you got the one that goes up your bum. And I thought it was called an endoscope because it goes up your end, like up your butt. A giant arrow. There you go. I was going to say I got a giant arrow poking at me and it's gone. But yeah, so I get one of those books. And then that basically confirms that I had an inflammatory bowel disease. And before that, I only really had heard of Crohn's because I've got a friend who has Crohn's and we hung out a lot together and I saw him taking medications like mesalazine. And then I end up getting prescribed mesalazine straight away. And I was like, oh, that's so strange because I know about mesalazine. And pretty much just quickly, they sit you down in a room and they say, this is a uncurable disease. But then they're like, he's just staring at me. They're like, oh, just to make you feel a bit better, it's highly manageable. I'm like, okay. It's all quite terrifying, as you can imagine. In a boss fight. Yeah, so just get put on medications pretty quickly. I mean, yeah, good. It's good that they were able to put me on those medications so quickly. That's what the diagnosis process was like for me. Get up. Oh god. Estus flask. I could do with an Estus flask in real life. That would be pretty nice. If whenever you're flaring, take a health potion. As you can tell by watching this, I may have played the game before, but I'm not very good. Just to talk about the game briefly, I've gone with a mage because I've never really done a playthrough as a mage. I can't work out how to use the spells at the minute. Yeah, I actually got a roll off. Oh. Okay, I'll move on to the next question just as soon as this boss is dead. I have to concentrate for a second. Stab, stab. Yeah, I thought this was a very good choice in game because in Dark Souls you're sort of overcoming this, you know, you're overcoming the odds. Everything's stacked against you. You're just like this random guy who's woken up and you don't know what's going on. And I think it's a good sort of analogy for thriving despite the situation. And that's why I felt like it was a suitable game to play while I talk about overcoming inflammatory bowel disease and thriving despite it. Oh god. Okay, there we go. So the next question. Can you describe some of your symptoms you experience with ulcerative colitis? I mean, the symptoms, I've already talked about the symptoms a little bit. Main one being you're bleeding. So, yeah. Blood when you go to the bathroom. You might get cramps. Fatigue. The fatigue can get very real sometimes. You might just feel like you don't want to do anything. You're just so tired and done with the day that all you want to do is... I usually call it like this sort of unnatural fatigue. It's like this fatigue that washes over me. So hard to talk though, I can hear the talking. But yeah, it's like this unnatural fatigue that washes over me and I just feel like this, like I can't do anything. I don't feel up to doing anything when I feel that, and that's part of it. And I think that's just, I don't know, maybe it's due to having inflammation and your body's like trying to heal it. But on those days, it's just like it's a challenge to do anything, to be honest. In Lordaeron, level up and kindle. Some other symptoms that you might get. Some people experience all sorts of symptoms like itching and skin stuff, but I've never experienced any of that. It's mostly been like lots of cramps, the blood, and just the unnatural fatigue. But I'll talk about cramps just a little bit. And the cramps can happen even when you're not flaring with ulcerative colitis. But cramps can happen at any time. And sometimes it's just like it might be something you ate, or it might just come on and you're not really sure why it's come on. And I'll just have to sort of curl up into a ball or lie down, lie on my side, whatever it is, to try and help the cramps go away. So they're the symptoms of ulcerative colitis. So the next question that I've got here is, how does ulcerative colitis affect your daily life? So, like I was just saying, cramps is a big one. When I've got the cramps, I'm going to have to lie down for a bit. I don't want to hear what this guy's got to say. Yeah, the cramps really do. That's the main thing. And the fatigue. When the fatigue kicks in, then it does sort of just ruin your day. Other ways it affects your life? Well, let's just talk strictly not when you're in a flare. You can just still get the fatigue and the cramps, like I say. And then it's sort of just like the fear. And when I say the fear, it's like, it's almost like if you flared in the past, it's sort of like a trauma. So you have this constant baseline. It's not like you're scared all the time, but I might be like using the bathroom and then I'll like check the toilet paper and I'll be like kind of scared for a second, like, will there be blood? Luckily at the minute, no, touch wood. But that's what I mean by the fact that there's a sort of trauma there that you're kind of scared. What could happen next? Will I be flaring? I don't know what to level up, so I'm just going to do that. Obviously, the way it affects your day-to-day life if you're flaring is much greater. If you're flaring, fatigue's going to be so much higher. If you're flaring, you're going to have to use the bathroom frequently. If you're flaring, you might have to go to the hospital. Just to go back, actually, that's the other way. It does affect my life. And I'm not currently flaring, touch wood, but I have to go to the hospital every 8 weeks. I have to book blood tests. So it does affect my life. And like whenever I get a job, I inform the employer and I say like, oh, I might end up flaring. And if this happens, I need to use the bathroom more often, or I might need time off, or like there was actually a time when I was at work. This might have been like 3 months ago. And I haven't had a period where I've felt anything at work, but it was almost suddenly my cramps were coming on, and I was walking around, and suddenly I was like this. I was hunched over, and it's like as the cramps come on more intensely, I end up walking over, hunched like this, and then my boss was just like, everyone sort of noticed. They were just like, "What's going on with you?" And I just said like, "Oh, just hurting," and I'm trying to work through it. But at the end of the day, she was just like, "Oh, go and sit down, go and lie down for a bit." So it does affect your life. It really does. So next question. I've got a peppermint tea here. The next question I've got here, feel free to write any questions in the chat if you've got any. I've just got a list of questions here to work through. Or if you're watching this after it's been released, leave a comment with some questions and I'll answer them on the next live stream. Can you share any embarrassing moments you've had due to ulcerative colitis? Embarrassing moments. Well, I'd say the most sort of embarrassing moment is when you are flaring. It can be like a challenge to know if a fart is going to be dangerous or not. So you might go in for a fart. You might decide, oh, I really need to fart. I'll let this one slide. And yeah, it'll turn out to be a messy one if you get my drift. And those moments, it's almost like when you fart and that, you feel that something's not right. It's almost like it shocks your body. You go, oh God. Like that. That's good timing on him ambushing me. Dispatch of these fellows. You see that blood stain? That's what it's like when you're flaring. No, that's quite graphic. Just to go back to how it affects your daily life, though. The question, how does ulcerative colitis affect your daily life? That's what I'm talking about. See this blood stain? That's what you're imagining every time you go to the toilet. See how this guy died. Oh, he just fell off. That's how you're imagining every bowel movement's going to be. Because at one time, it was like that. So it's like a trauma of like what happened in the past. It gets sort of locked in. And you can just imagine it happening at any time. But embarrassing moments usually just come down to that, really. Actually, one time when I was in the hospital, embarrassing moments. I remember, oh God, my farts were stinking very much. I was lying in the hospital bed, and I think farts smell when your bowels are like inflamed, like they're healing, like stuff isn't right down there, it's inflamed, whatever. I think that makes your farts just, oh, it was disgusting. The lady next to me, there was a lady in the hospital bed next to me, and she, every time I'd fart, you could hear like she'd spray deodorant everywhere trying to block it, and then that deodorant would make me cough. So it wasn't a very good environment for stinks. But I remember the nurse came up to me, and I had this big fart brewing, and I needed to just push out this big fart. And I asked the nurse, I said, do you mind if I do a fart? And she was just like, she was found that entertaining because she was like, look, you're on a ward for, it's a specialty gastroenterology ward or whatever. So of course we don't care if you fart. So then that's when I started letting the farts out, and they're comically loud. And I'm lying there I'm in a room, I think there was like 6 or 8 of us. Can I make this jump? Can't remember. Oh, that looked like I almost did. 6 of 8 of us in a room, and then you got me pushing out some ridiculously loud farts. Oh, that looked like I made it then. Try that one more time. Then I'll move on. Just while we're talking about farts, and oh god, that did not sound good. Let me try to jump one more time. That dragon really shook me. Oh, come on. Okay, we'll just move on. So yes, you'll notice that while we're talking about inflammatory bowel disease, you have to talk about disgusting things like farts and going to the bathroom. That's all just part of nature, innit? And most of us like to hide it or pretend it doesn't happen. But when you've got a problem like ulcerative colitis, you can't help but have to be quite loud with it. And that's one of the ways I feel like it's given me a sort of superpower, is it's enabled me to... Ow. It's enabled me to fart very loudly. And I'm quite proud of that. I'll show you at some point if I can get a fart going. But yeah, asking the nurse in hospital if it was alright to fart, I did feel quite embarrassed then. And then, just other than that, it's been mostly procedures related to ulcerative colitis. So having an endoscopy, you kind of have to do away with embarrassment because you're lying there, and you got to have your bum out, obviously, because they're going to put a camera up it, and you just have to sit there and take it, like, and you got to deal with the fact there's like 3 people around you, all there to look up your butt. So what more can you do, really? You have to do away with being embarrassed, I feel. Do I want to put more into health? Yeah, why not? I'm just winging it here. Put some stats into real life health, that'd be nice. So I'm going to make... Oh god, I forgot everything respawns. Don't fall down. Just have to dispatch of these fellows. There you go. Oh, I can parry. Okay, so what's the next question? What treatments or medications have you found helpful? Oh, hello there. Treatments and medications. So, I mean, there's been a few. Mesalazine. Ow. Mesalazine was the first medication that I found helpful. Dodge! I heard footsteps, it freaked me out. Mesalazine was the medication that I was on for a long time. Hang on, let me just try and dispatch these fellows up here. Can't seem to lock onto them. Oh, there we go. You buggers. I'm going to die, aren't I? Oh, you dirty buggers. Okay. I'm going to try and parry this guy. Oh, too early. And then I'll tell you about mesalazine. Go on, hit me. Oh! This isn't going well. Dodge! 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 Okay, I will parry this guy. Go on. Yes! That's it. Get in the gut. Get in the gut. Blech. Mesalazine. That was a medication. Have I got some here? I think I do. I have some mesalazine right here. This was the first medication I was prescribed. See this? you got these granules. So these are 2 grams each. And every morning I'd have these, and it's like a little, it's almost like you're opening up sherbet, knock them back onto the back of your tongue, and you down it with some water. And that kept me pretty healthy for a long time. The thing is, it was on and off, to be honest. There we go, that's some parrying action. It was on and off. It didn't keep me out of flare. I would sort of flare on and off. Oh, I'm getting some real parries in now. Someone else come in. I would have, like, let's say 6 months of health, and then it would be followed up by, I'll call it a mini flare. Like, I'd have some blood return, and then I'd have to take some extra medication. Then I'd go back to just having, someone walking. Can you hear that? And then, but yeah, then I go back to just taking the mesalazine. Never had any side effects from mesalazine at all. I remember reading, this seems to be a side effect of most of the IBD medications. It would be like hair loss. Luckily, I think my hair loss has just been natural, like from me aging. But yeah, mesalazine to me feels like a very safe medication with not many side effects, which I'm happy about. Obviously, you don't want side effects. The only thing is, I wasn't sure it ever really helped much. Something I'd like to test, if I ever get the sort of balls to do it. Oh, for God's sake. Get here. Would be to actually come off of medications. Maybe even go back to mesalazine. And sort of test, like, how long is it before I flare with no medications, and how long till I flare with mesalazine? Because I feel like, how effective was it for me? If I was flaring every 6 months, how effective really was it? What was it actually doing for me? Like, was it even better than being on no medications? I don't know. That's something I'd like to test. So the only way to test it would be to actually just risk my own health and run like basically a science experiment. This is a cheeky spot, isn't it? Leave him with 1 health. We'll finish him. We'll finish him ourselves. Hello, friend. Now, I do remember there's a crossbow man up. Hello, bitch. Sorry, don't mean to sweat. Try and keep it family friendly. Although, talking about bums, that isn't very family friendly. But it's a medical condition, so what can you do? You can get shot by a soul arrow. I want to do a jumping attack. Can you do? I don't think you can do jumping attack. It's just that. Okay. So yeah, that's the medication that I was on for the longest time. And what I would do is, I actually recorded a video on this yesterday. Would be, oh, he actually hit me. I thought I could be quicker than that. This dagger is fucked. Don't you dare. So what I would take a mesalazine enema. So this is where it links back to the previous question of embarrassing moments. It's again putting stuff up your bum, which you have to get over being embarrassed. That I'd like to actually add that to one of my most embarrassing moments with it, and it's having to stand there, pop your bum back, and shove an enema out your butt. It's very sort of not demeaning, because you're doing it to yourself, but I don't know. It doesn't make you feel good. And actually, not embarrassing, but lowest moment that I ever felt was when I was flaring before I went to hospital. And I hate doing stool samples. So you have to give I actually have a pot right in front of me. But it's a little pot, and you have to put some of your number 2 in there, put to them to run tests on. And this made me feel the lowest. The lowest. So I'd collected my stool, right, to put in the pot. And just seeing what had come out of me, I was just like, holy crap, I am in a bad state. Like, it was literally just like liquid blood. And I was just like, how? It was just a vial of blood that had come out of me. And it wasn't from my veins, it was from my butt. And that was honestly that felt like the most degrading thing ever for me. Just seeing that. It was really like, Jacob, you're in a very bad state if this is coming out of you. But to go back to medications, mesalazine enemas did work very well. It's basically... So to just take a step back, mesalazine granules that I took, I'd always noticed that when I'd used them, I'd go to the bathroom later that day, and not most, but I'd see the granules in the toilet. So it's like, how much of this am I even like processing? How much of it's actually being released and used to medicate me? Evidently not much. Or if it was, I mean, I don't know. But anyway, the advantage of using the enema is you're administering the medication to right where it needs to be. So it can get there, it can be where it needs to be, it gets started, start doing its job. You don't have to go through your digestive system. And it can do its thing without, you're not processing through your liver or whatever. And those did get me out of quite few flares, actually. And I was flaring on and off for a very long time. Oh, wow. Oh, dodge. Quickly chucking a heal. Magic is kind of concerning. Because he, takes him a long time to shoot. Oh, God. I press dodge. What's he doing? Big axe attack. Oh, dodge through the balls. Alright. Oh, here we go. Bang. First try. Right, where was I? So it's all about medications that I found useful. So yeah, mesalazine enemas. Very good. They help me get out of a lot of flares. Let's talk about corticosteroids. I've had very bad experiences with those. But, and like I said, I did record a video on these yesterday. That it's not out yet. But I've recorded it. It's scheduled. I talked about steroid enemas. Now these, compared to taking steroids by mouth, this was very, there was basically no side effects, which I was very grateful for. It did help. And honestly, the reduction in side effects can't be understated. Because when I was always very against taking steroids. And when I finally submitted, my specialist was like, when she first prescribed me steroids, I was just like, I think I got into my own head. Said, I think it sent me a bit crazy, and I think that was mostly my own sort of doing. And then I just got off of them very quickly. And then she prescribed me budesonide, which is supposedly a steroid with less side effects. That did nothing for me. And I said, look, is there anything you could do for me? I don't want to take the prednisolone, or prednisone as they say in America. What else? What are the other options? And she said, well, why don't you try the prednisone enema? And I said, yeah, I'll give that a go. And it actually did help. So got a message here. Hello, I was diagnosed with ulcerative colitis 2 years ago and I'm 60 years old. Thank you for sharing. Oh, thanks for commenting and having a look at what I'm talking about. I'm just doing a live stream here where I'm talking about my experiences living with it for 10 years and I'm answering questions. So if you've got any questions, feel free to leave them in the chat. And I'm playing a game while I do it. And I'm playing Dark Souls. But it's just to help talk, really, so you've got something to look at. But so I was taking the steroid enema after I sort of fought for it. I don't think it's the sort of thing they like to prescribe first. They like to prescribe you oral corticosteroids. And yeah, the enema worked well. There was hardly any side effects. And I just think that is something I'd really like to highlight. It's the fact that it has so much less side effects. So if it hasn't been brought up and they're trying to push you on steroids, there are other options if you're willing to use an enema. And that's probably something that a lot of people are not willing to do. Can't remember. There is a dragon. And I'm going to die. Yeah, so I think the reason they don't bring it up is just the fact that I think a lot of people are just very unwilling to put stuff up their butt. And like I said earlier, it's embarrassing. You don't want to put stuff up your butt. But if you can dispense of that embarrassment, then there are medication options that you can use. So yeah, those medications, mesalazine, corticosteroids, they did help me on and off. But they didn't fully stop me from flaring. Like I just continue through this cycle of 6 months of non-flare, and then I go into a flare that would last like 2 to 3 months, and I go back to not flaring. I don't know how much these medications are really helping. These days, after I went to the hospital, I'm on very different medications now. So I've got my pills right here. I've got azathioprine. And every 8 weeks I get an infusion, and that's a drug called Remicade or Infliximab, depending on where you're from. And those have helped considerably. Like, I touch wood, I don't want to jinx anything here. I haven't flared since I've been on them. And the reason why I'm quite reticent to say that, because I do find that when you bring that up, it sort of jinxes it, makes you start flaring. So I'm going to touch wood. I'm not superstitious, but I do feel like touching wood helps you do. But yeah, these medications have worked very well for me. It's the only thing I found that has actually kept me from flaring. There's been a lot of things I've tried, like CBD. In fact, I've got a vial of it right here. CBD oil. I've got CBD gummies. I've tried all sorts of things. I've got a pot of cordyceps here, mushrooms, cordyceps. I've got lion's mane. I've got all sorts of supplements. I've tried a lot of things. The main things I've found is just finding a medication that works for you and then working on sleep, diet, and exercise. Just common sense things, really. Do those things and it will heal you up. The thing that I'd like to experiment with, if I'm not scared, would be to come off the medications and see how well can just working on sleep, diet, and exercise alone get you through. Now, the thing is, that's quite a terrifying thing. So we've got a question here. What is the best way to avoid flare-ups? I don't want to go on immunosuppressants. My consultant wants me to start on azathioprine. So it's kind of what I was just talking about there. But I will say I'm on azathioprine. I'm right there. I'm on it. The reason why I can sympathise, and I didn't want to go on it either, because it can have a sort of long-term impact on your internal organs. If it can be avoided, it's for the best. But I will just say, if you are in a bad flare, it's kind of worth being on it just to get out of the flare. But the main things is finding foods that don't cause you inflammation, that's quite a challenge. I'm still working on that myself, but you can iterate on your foods. Diet, getting good exercise, and make sure you sleep well. Like allocating a set amount of time for you to get the chance of 8 hours sleep. And I say get the chance of 8 hours sleep because sometimes it's actually very hard to get 8 hours of sleep. But if you can allocate enough time for you to be in bed and to try whatever it is, however long it takes you to wind down, make sure you've got enough time to wind down of the night, all those sort of things to try and help you get the important 8 hours of sleep. Because that's where a lot of the healing comes from. Oh god, there's a giant rat trying to attack me. There you go. A lot of the healing comes from getting 8 hours of sleep. And supplementing any nutrient deficiencies that you might have. Get your vitamin D levels checked. That's a very good one. Are you deficient in vitamin D? That's important to find out. If you're from a country like the UK, it's very likely that you are. As I am. So I've got vitamin D3, D2, and I take 4,000 international units. And I get blood tested, and I know that my levels are high. So I know that it's working. Blood tests can help with that. I can only speak to UK, but if you are there, there should be funding for you to get one vitamin D blood test a year. You just have to ask for it. It might vary depending on trust to trust. If you're from America, I don't know, but it's worth getting it checked. Is that way you can truly know if you're deficient or not? And there is some sort of link between a low vitamin D level and recurring flare-ups. And I can say, since I've been supplementing vitamin D, the amount of times I've just been sick, I've been sick hardly any time. And I'm on immunosuppressants, so I thought I'd be much more likely to get sick, but maybe the vitamin D is enough to actually stop that from happening. But those are the main things, really. Like I was saying earlier, it's sort of just trial and error. I'm gonna die. Hang on. Oh god, I'm getting surrounded here. I would like to find out how much of a role diet, exercise, and sleep can play in that process without medications. But it's a very scary prospect to say, I'm going to come off my medications and trust in my diet. I think that's quite a dangerous thing, because medications can form the basis of healing, really. And I will say, if anyone's listening to this and they're thinking of coming off the medications and they're in a flare, I think that is the wrong choice, because you don't want to be in a flare state. The sooner you can get out of a flare state, the better. You know, being in a flare state is, could lead to potential complications elsewhere. So do lean on those medications to get you to the point where you're not flaring. It's just not worth it. So that's pretty much all the advice I've got on there. And stress, actually. Stress is a huge thing. If you're worrying about flaring or stuff like that, it's better to just chill out, really, because stress causes a lot of problems. So, the next question, after treatments and medications I found helpful, is how does diet impact your condition? So this is a big topic, and it's a hard one to talk about because it's very individual. But I have learnt certain foods that are terrible for me, like having a Domino's pizza. That's probably the worst thing I could do. If I was to go and have Domino's pizza, you'd find me curled up on the floor in pain, because something about whatever they make their pizzas out of just causes me immense pain. I've implemented strategies, sort of like having salmon once a week. I've put more meat into my diet. I try and eat quite like foods that have like short ingredients lists. Like, for instance, I've got a banana here. There's one ingredient, that's a banana. Or I've been eating steak. I do eat a fair bit of red meat because there's a lot of nutrients in it. I eat avocados, that sort of thing. So I'm in the UK. I've discovered the healing benefits of sleep, which I approve. Oh, that's really good to hear. That's really positive to hear, actually. I'm glad that you found a way to improve your sleep, because that's something that a lot of people ignore. Sleep. You know, you might have heard the term like, oh, sleep when I'm dead. Well, that might happen sooner if we're not sleeping. So I just don't think it's worth it. Since I've gone quite all in with my sleep routine, I'd say to an autistic degree, where I literally, everything's at the same time. I do everything at the same time every day, sleep-wise. I wind down at the same time, get ready for bed at the same time, go to sleep at the same time, wake up at the same time. Since I've been doing that, like, it's a bit ropey at first, but once you start doing that, do that consistently, it suddenly becomes just routine. Suddenly you're sleeping better. Like now I wake up less in the night. And when I do wake up once a night. But it's been happening later and later. And sometimes, this is not really ever happened, but sometimes I've actually recently slept through the night. Which I'm like, whoa. And that's just down to I've done it every day. Day in, day out. Just stick to the routine. Sleep routines are amazing. And like, if I could go back and tell my younger self anything, it would be to just do your sleep routine. Other than, like, I'd say work harder and sort your life out. I'd say sort your sleep out as a priority. Because it's so much easier to get things done and to be hopeful when you've had a good night's sleep. That was one of the biggest challenges I had when I was on corticosteroid. I was on prednisolone. The biggest challenge for me was just the fact that it was ruining my sleep. I was getting, on a good day, an amazing day would be 5 hours, but it was like 1 to 2 hours a night, and I just sent me insane, and it sent me on this whole sleeping journey, which in a way is positive for me, because I wouldn't be where I am today and know things that I do now. I hadn't gone through that insane period of no sleep. But yeah, prednisolone is a hell of a drug. I hate it. I don't even know if it's very effective for me. It's an awful drug. And they seem to prescribe it all the time. It's a very common medication. Like, it's prescribed for so many different conditions. But it just so happens to be prescribed for inflammatory bowel disease as well. If you can avoid taking that, I would. But sometimes it gets to the point where you just have to take it. And I avoided taking it for, I'd say, 7 or 8 years before it was like, okay, now I have to take it. And I was quite upset when I had to take it, because I'd spent so long avoiding it to the best of my ability. This guy died already. But yeah, it completely wrecked my sleep. And I joined this IBD Discord. And I think I went on Reddit as well. So it's a chat room. And I just said, someone help me. I can't sleep. I can't sleep when I'm on this medication. It's ruining my life. So, and I went to pharmacy as well. And they said, in the short term, you can take medication called Nitol, which the active ingredient in that is called diphenhydramine. And that actually allowed me to sleep for the 5 hours. the magical 5 hours that I was getting on prednisolone. I was like, when I woke up after 5 hours of sleep, I was like, wow. If I woke up after 5 hours of sleep now, I'd feel like a shell of a human. But back then, it was like an amazing amount. So if I wake up now and I've had like even 7 hours, but I woke up slightly early or once in the night, I feel like a shell of a human. 8 hours is what I need. But yes, Oh, I'll read your message in a second. I'll just deal with this crossbow man. I was going to say something about prednisolone. So I had similar hours of lack of sleep, but I also suffer with schizophrenia, which causes too much brain activity. I won't say I know too much about schizophrenia, but I have worked with I've worked with the NHS before on videos, and I've interviewed people with schizophrenia. It's very interesting to me. But yeah, too much brain activity when you're trying to sleep is the worst thing. So I can sympathise with that because I know what that feels like. And I can attest to actually a tea that has helped me. It doesn't stop you overthinking if you've had a stressful day or you've got lots of racing thoughts. But lemon balm tea has actually been something that I've relied on. That's part of my sleep routine. And I found that it has actually enabled my mind, personally anyway, to become calm overnight. Oops. And the way that I understand that it works is there's something called GABA in your brain. And that GABA sends a signal or a message to say, oh, it's time to calm down now. Or it slows down the amount of messages sending throughout your brain. If you're hearing that hammer, there's a blacksmith downstairs. Just so I'm getting distracted. What do I want to do? Yeah, so that GABA, I think in some people you might not produce enough GABA, and I feel like I'm one of those people there. Don't produce enough GABA naturally, so I've been using lemon balm tea to maybe it supplements it for me. It enables me to get the sleep that I'm looking for, or to calm down overnight. But like I said, it doesn't cure racing thoughts, because I've had days where literally the other day I was overwhelmed with. I'm trying to do so much. Like I've got so many YouTube ideas I want to do. I want to do a lot with this channel. And I've got another channel as well, and I was just thinking about all the stuff I could be doing, all the things I need to do to try and earn more money just in general, and I was having a hard time trying to sleep that night. And so it doesn't stop all your racing thoughts. Right, so where was I on the questions? Are there any... I was talking about specific foods. But, I mean, foods I've been trying to implement... Oh, it's a big night. I've been trying to implement more fermented foods these days. So something that I've been having for quite a long time now is kefir. And I'll have that... Oh, gosh, this man's coming at me. I have that every morning with breakfast. So I'll have oats, blueberries, kefir. Okay, dispatch with. Oats, kefir, blueberries. I'll have some cinnamon, some chia seeds. And that's my breakfast. Have that every day. Again, it's quite a very autistic routine. I just do the same things. I've had that breakfast for years now. And I started implementing sauerkraut as well. And the good thing about sauerkraut and kefir is it can give some of the good bacteria to your gut. And I don't want to talk about what causes ulcerative colitis, because people say they don't, like specialists say they don't know. They don't know what causes it. But one theory is that there's like an imbalance of the gut bacteria. I want to activate the shortcut actually. So kefir and sauerkraut and other fermented foods can help balance it out pretty much. And I've just been trying to implement those back into my life. I say back into my life. I never ate them when I was younger. But another thing that I've been doing is actually trying to avoid seed oils, like rapeseed oil and that sort of thing. Because seed oils are in everything. And there's some sort of link between seed oils, inflammation, and general health. I just seen you said you just started taking kefir and green tea. And that's very interesting. So I've got some green tea in the cupboard as well. Let me know how you've been finding it. Kefir can be very sour. If you're looking for cheap kefir, other than making it yourself, you can get kefir from the imported section in supermarkets. So I found that's the best place. And I've got a Polish friend at work, and they say that the imported one is better. It's definitely more sour, so that probably means that it's got more of that sort of goodness in it. What was I talking about before that? I can't remember. It's talking about sauerkraut. Oh, seed oils. Yeah, I've been trying to avoid that, and I've been slowly iterating on my diet pretty much. Like, what thing? I'm dead. What things can I take out of my diet that might be causing me problems, and what things can I add that can alleviate future problems, help me feel better for a brighter future, to be honest. So I think my life might be better if I take out seed oils. Speculation at this point. I can't say if it will or not. Just with diet. That's why it's so hard to give advice with diet. Where am I? I've gone the wrong way somehow. Oh no, wrong way. It's hard to give it advice with diet because, you know, say for instance I said I drink kefir. Someone might drink kefir and they find it triggers lactose intolerance or something. I don't know. You can never really tell how diet's going to affect one person to the other. It has to be done through self-experimentation. But yeah, one thing I noticed was the past few weeks I've gone a lot heavier into just like having meats and fruits. I do eat carbs still, like other things, but most of my diet has been from either like lean proteins or healthy fat like avocado. And since doing that, I've had a lot more energy. And I feel like I've been having less cramping. Again, it's hard to say. It really is. Can I shoot this guy from here? It seems he can shoot me. Whoa. Okay, I can't seem to target him. So yeah, diet can be... It's hard to give a guide on diet, but it's like you can almost explore it with someone. And it's sort of like you have to look at your food history. What times do you remember having a food and feeling a certain way? Do you remember having an experience with a food and then finding that you cramp an hour later? Well, then that food's probably not good for you. Or I think, but going back to stress, I'll just touch upon stress and how its immediate impact with me. I was very into skateboarding. This is quite a few years ago now. But I got very perfectionist about it. And the problem with that was I get very angry. Oh, I forgot this guy respawns. But then with that anger, obviously that's like a form of stress. And I'd let myself get very angry in a very silly way, like to the point where I'd literally have like a headache. Just dispatch this fellow. So I'd be skateboarding on the seafront. I'd be getting very angry, throwing my skateboard around, have a headache. I'd get home, use the toilet, there'd be blood. I really feel like the stress is very linked. And then I actually heard an explanation about this, like a medical explanation, because the way I was imagining it was like the stress, sort of like, I can't remember the way I described it, but apparently the medical explanation was that the stress was raising cortisol, and when cortisol's raised, immune function is reduced. But then, so I get home, I start calming down, then the cortisol leaves the body, and I go back into a calm state, immune system turns back on, and then it starts fighting itself to a greater degree. And that's the way I was told it. So Should one cut out fibre, i.e. wholemeal bread, pasta? What is your experience? My experience with fibre is, for the most part, I do still eat fibre. Like, I eat oats. I do eat mixed salads. I try to keep it to things like fruits and salads. So I've got some here. And I used to eat a lot of bread. And that actually, I feel, was causing me a source of pain. So I've removed bread. I'd say 99% of the time I don't eat bread. Pastas, I find I can eat them okay. God, there's a lot of guys here. I find that pastas, I can eat them for the most part okay. But then sometimes they can cause me a bit of pain. I know a lot of advice is for flaring is to take out fibre. Don't eat fibre because it's going to make you go to the toilet more. But if you're not in a flare state, I don't really see the need to follow that advice. And I think it's probably beneficial to have fibre. Because fibre feeds the bacteria in your gut. So if you can find a fibre that doesn't hurt you, then I would eat it. And, wow, there's a lot of dudes here. Yeah, I would eat it if you find that you're okay with it. But just go off your personal experience and experiment by not having it and seeing how you feel. Do you eat do you cut out the bread and then that following week you feel like you have less bloating, maybe you fart less, maybe you're cramping less? Do you find that there's no difference? Then maybe the bread's not causing much issue. So I would just experiment. Swap things out. Say, for instance, I can be quite strict on myself. Like yesterday, we were having burgers. And I looked at the ingredients of the burger bun. It's a brioche bun. And I elected to actually just swap out the burger bun and have lettuce. So I had a lettuce burger. And that was a good choice, I feel. Because I feel energized today. That's one thing as well, is don't look at the immediate, how did you feel that day after eating it? Think about how you feel the following day, because there's oftentimes you're digesting the food and you're using that energy tomorrow. But how do you feel the following day? So the next question is, have you noticed stress making your symptoms worse? I was just talking about this actually for the skateboarding. But yes, I have noticed every time I let myself get very stressed, I do get worse symptoms. I feel like it's very linked. Anytime I've let myself get angry, it's always been to the detriment of my IBD. So the best thing to do, if you find yourself getting stressed, is to change your mindset and try to not let it stress you, because it's not worth it. Right, so thanks for that info. I've just finished a course of budesonide for a flare-up, taking oral mesalazine throughout. Yeah, I've had that exact same. I've been through that exact same thing. I've taken oral mesalazine. I've still got my stash. I've got many mesalazine sachets here, all in these pentazole granule form. I've taken budesonide. I took mesalazine for years and years and years. How are you finding budesonide? Because I found personally it didn't really do anything for me. I don't know if it's just like I was flaring too bad at the time, but it didn't seem to change my flare. Just gonna free this man. What a cool voice actor, this guy. I am Night Lord. My throat is getting very sore talking. I'm not used to talking for such a long period of time. Might have to go and make a tea soon. Right. So yeah, stress. I've just basically, the way I've dealt with stress is I've actually just changed my behaviours. Like, I actually decided Although I've been skateboarding for a lot of my life, I decided it wasn't worth to keep skateboarding, so I took it out of my life because I just found myself getting too angry. I started going to the gym instead. I started lifting weights, and then I'd play shooting video. I play video games where I'd shoot, shooting games. I get angry, so I just like, for the most part, I've taken them out of my life because the stress, the way it affects your inflammatory bowel disease, it's just not worth it. So I'd say just avoid as much stress as possible. So what's the difference between colitis and Crohn's disease from my perspective? So they're quite different. Luckily I've grown up with a friend who has Crohn's, and I've seen the way it affects him. It's very different. Colitis, for me, it's been mostly about bleeding when I go to the bathroom. It's been about cramps, fatigue, and then when the way I saw Crohn's affect my friend was like, say, I remember distinctly, like, he ate a banana. I've got a banana right here. He ate that, and then he was being sick, and then it's more, he's just throwing up after meals a lot of the time, and it's sort of like an inflammation of the whole digestive tract. But I don't think he ever really had bleeding in the same way that I did. But the medications are largely the same because it's just about inflammation. So that's the way that I would say the main differences are. So the next question is, no, that's the one I just did. How do you cope with the mental and emotional challenges of living with colitis? So I'll try and answer that whilst doing this boss fight. It can be very tough, and the way I describe my experiences with colitis, it's a form of trauma. Don't know how well I'm going to do on this boss, but it causes like a feeling of trauma in the sense that when I use the bathroom, there's like this fear that I will flare again. You're scared of like, will there be blood this time? Is it again time to go to hospital? Or it's those sort of things. I'm still to this day scared of looking at the toilet paper, or looking down in the bowl, because so many times I looked down and it was bright red. It looked like a battle scene. Oh, I'm out of spells. It's taught me a lot of things, actually. I'm dead. It's taught me that the best way to deal with flare-ups is to accept your situation. Just accept that, you are the way that you are. This is the way things are. And that's been a very powerful thing to believe, I remember I was sitting right here, actually, and this was probably about 2 weeks before I went to the hospital, in the worst flare of my life. And I remember I'd been going to therapy, and she sort of taught me this mindset. And it just got to a point where I had to just truly accept that I was in this state. I was in this health state. And there's not much I could do about it. I just have to focus on the things I can do. And at that time, it was just distract myself. But once I truly accepted it, I stopped worrying about it so much. So I'd say getting to that point's quite tough. It is tough to actually accept the state that you're in. You can imagine accepting it, but actually believing it and thinking it, two different things. It's like knowing the difference between knowing and believing. Like, you're flaring, and you know that you should accept it, but you don't truly accept it. You haven't truly bought into it. But once you truly believe it, it gives you a sense of calm, I think. It allows you to deal with the stress of it a lot better. I think that's something you could just take to most things in life, to be honest. You just play the cards you've been dealt. It's that phrase, play the cards you've been dealt. It's just accept your situation. What was the question again? How do you cope with the mental and emotional challenges? So, yeah, it is that, and that's something that's come in more recent years. In earlier years, when I was less educated, I was using alcohol, which was a very stupid decision. I drink alcohol to sort of bury the feeling, which I think is a completely wrong thing to do. Oh, there's another guy. And I would not take care of myself. I wouldn't eat foods that you know give me nutrition. I wouldn't prioritize sleep. I'd just, yeah, I think there's a lot of learning through the process, and that's just part of me growing up. I mean, when I was diagnosed, I was what, 21 or something. Now I'm going to be 32 this year, so over that time I've just grown up myself, and maybe I would have had that sort of mindset change regardless of inflammatory bowel disease. I don't know. No way to really know now, because this is, you only live one life. I can't go back and see how I would have been if I didn't. I'm just distracted. I was trying to read the question again. Mental and emotional challenges. Yeah, I'd say I think I've covered that quite well. What lifestyle changes have helped you manage your symptoms? Well, I feel like I've talked about them for the most part. It's focusing on diet, exercise, sleep, stress management. And it sounds like a lot. It sounds like that's a, you know, I've got to change my life. Well, maybe, yeah. If you want to live a healthier, happier life, maybe you do need to change your life. But I will say these are all things that I've done iteratively. I mean, like I said, when I was younger, I still would drink alcohol. And I do feel like that was a very stupid decision. But that alcohol at the time was just numbing my feelings. But that's all gone now. Like, I don't go out drinking. I just withdrew from that whole life. Like, a lot of my old friends, I hardly see them. It's not that I don't like them. It's just, at the time, I was like, I don't want to engage with this culture because it's just not enjoying it. It's not helping me. And I've engaged in a different culture now. The people I hang out with most are people I see at the gym. And lifting weights has been something that has helped me a lot. Just got me through hard times. Like when I was flaring, you know, you could get, well, for me, it's all like, I feel like a shell of a person when you're flaring. And then, because I forgot about these guys. And then I'd go out to my garden, I'd deadlift, and I'd feel like a man again. Like it would bring back this life. And like, I always called it got my man juices flowing. After feeling so like a shell of a human, like these guys. Look at these guys. These are shells of people. Living in pain and suffering. That's how I felt when I was flaring. And then I'd go and I'd deadlift and it would revitalize me. And I'd become, for a moment, I wasn't just a person in flare suffering. I was my normal self again that has energy and can do things. It almost gave me a sense of autonomy again, being able to lift weights. And I leaned on lifting heavy weights a lot throughout my time flaring. I really need some better spells. I leaned on it heavily because it's the only thing that sort of made me feel normal. These guys do not relent. Oh my god. This dagger is pants. Sorry, I saw your message. I will read it out in a second. What is going on here? You guys just piss off. Uh-oh. Oh, how do I do that? Okay. The book that I'm reading, The Autoimmune Cure, Dr. Sval Godfrey. I probably read that wrong. That sounds interesting. Have you learn anything useful from it so far? So interestingly, there was a question on my list. I saw it was later on, but it was like, is this sort of thing hereditary? And my dad has psoriasis, and interesting, a lot of the same things I do would help my dad and his psoriasis as well, like vitamin D and all those sort of things. Arthritis. That's one thing I was interested to hear. When I was in hospital, there was a fellow who was looking after me, healthcare assistant. And he said he typically has crippling arthritis, but the fact that he was also on, not infliximab, but another word eludes me now, like a immunosuppressant medication, and it completely got rid of his arthritis pain, and he said he wouldn't be able to work without it. So that's quite amazing. Are there any home remedies or natural treatments you've tried? Natural treatments, well, I mentioned I've used lemon balm tea to help me sleep. Natural treatments I've tried, well, I've tried weed. It didn't really help. To be honest, I found that it had the opposite effects. When I would smoke that, and then I had the feeling that it would almost make me flare. I don't know if it's just a mental thing, but I'd smoke and then I'd find that I would bleed later on. So I don't know how much of a positive benefit it really had. So I don't use that at all. I haven't used that for about 4 years now, but I try to avoid that. But it can make you calm. It depends, really. Depends if it helps with your stress. I'm sure there was a guy I could buy spells off around here. Might just have to go and face the boss again. Natural remedies. I mean, I like to have hot baths. That can count as a natural remedy, right? A nice hot bath. That's something that I find very relieving, especially if you've got large cramps. Or if you've got large cramps or you're really hurting. A hot water bottle as well. But hot baths in general, I feel, are very good. So, hang on. Let me just scroll down these questions. Quite a few here. Number 14. What do you do during a flare-up to find relief? Well, I mentioned that I like to deadlift. That's not going to be for everyone. And that's just because I was sort of pre-trained. Like, I was trained in the gym before I started flaring. So I felt like I could take the risk and do a deadlift. To find relief, like say if it's just pain relief, paracetamol did kind of help, just to like dull it a little bit. But yeah, other than that, it's just the basics that we've already covered: the sleep and the exercise, the diet. I will say community. I found that very important. So being able to talk to people about your experiences, how you're feeling. I just remembered what I wanted to do now, which involves going back to Bonfire. Community I found very important, actually. And it's not that it gave me physical relief, but it was mental relief. So when I keep going on about when I was in hospital. When I was in hospital, I leaned very heavily on community. I'd talk to people around me. I'd talk to people online. Talk to other people with inflammatory bowel disease. Like, if I didn't have that, I think it would have been a hell of a lot tougher to deal with it having this flare. It would have been terrible, actually. When the flare's bad, it's kind of hard to get relief. There's not much you can really do. It's not like you just have to accept that it's gonna suck. I don't have any humanity. Oh, hang on. That was my whole plan here. Oh, I've got one here. Okay. So in fact, that's weird because the next question is, how can friends and family best support someone with ulcerative colitis? So I'd say for the most part, it's just allowing space to be on your own if you feel like you want to be on your own. I was going to use the word allow space to suffer, but that's probably the wrong way of wording it. It's just allowing space to be, you know, to process what's going on. Maybe just helping out with preparing foods that you know are going to be okay. Because during a flare, like eating during a flare can be a real challenge. Like when I remember my specialist was saying to me, like, doesn't really matter what you eat because whatever you eat's just going to go straight through you. So I just tried to eat the plainest food, which was, I decided to live off of ready bread and peanut butter. Bit of a weird diet. And in the vein of this question, I am getting some help. So you can summon in people to help you out in the same vein as talking about support in real life. So where's the wave? Hello, Njar. We're calling in some help. And this is what we like to do with ulcerative colitis. So it might be getting a lift. Do another. Oh, I didn't mean to do that. Come this way. Yeah, getting a lift if you got to go somewhere. Another thing is just making things as easy as possible for yourself. Oh, he's doing a backstab. So say you're doing work at the computer. Oh, blimey. It might be like you put an extension lead onto your desk so you don't have to bend over all the time. That's one way you make your life a little bit easier. It's just like this little 1%. Preparing your food the day before so you don't have to do it in the morning. Those sort of things. So now tomorrow's a little bit easier. Maybe your partner or whoever lives with you help you out with that. Like maybe they would prepare the foods or buy in the foods. Maybe you feel too terrible to go out. Yeah. Yeah, just simple things really. Other than that, and I'd say keeping a calm state would help. But other than that, there's not really much that does help. Because they can't just cure you. So it's just helping out. Have you experienced any other health issues related to ulcerative colitis? Luckily, no. Luckily not. Who shall I summon here? Summon this dude. So the next question is, how do you maintain a good relationship with your healthcare provider? Well, I just stay in constant communication with mine. But the thing is, that's hard now. It's hard to stay in constant communication because they make it so hard to be able to be contactable. But before, it was basically just... Oh, bloody hell. Straight into it. I'm just going to get my souls. Before that, it's just a case of saying what you're going through. Everything. Mention everything, because every detail is useful. Every detail can help your specialist or healthcare provider make a better decision on how they can best help you. So even if you think it's like a little benign thing, like, oh, you had gut cramps, if you feel like you need to mention it, oh, they did most of the work there. If you feel like you need to mention it, then mention it. I just took that approach. Because there's no point hiding something from your healthcare provider. What are some important questions to ask doctors about ulcerative colitis? Well, say you've got an appointment. Important things to bring up. Or anything you're just unsure about, really. Is there anything that you want to know more about? Anything you'd wish a specialist would tell you, someone of authority to help you feel calm. Write it down. Write down your questions. The next time you go into your appointment, you have your questions there. Oh, I can't get up the ladder. Yeah, that would be the best approach, really. Write down any queries, questions, worries, concerns. Take them to your doctor. What's the next question? How do you stay informed about new treatments and research? Sorry, my throat is becoming very sore. I don't know how much longer I can keep talking. So there was some information about a new sort of potential, it was a potential cure. That's what everyone was saying. And that's something that could happen in the future. There might be a cure. So we just got to hold in. Hang on, guys. Have you joined any support groups and have they helped you? That's something that has been very important to me. I'm just chewing this banana. Support groups have meant a lot to me because you can just through the random chat that goes on, you can learn a lot. But you can also just ask questions, and where you've got so many people in a support group, you're bound to get like a useful answer out of someone. You're bound to learn something. Oh, hello. Greetings. Yeah, they're very important. I'd buy one of these. I don't know if I should or not. Nah. Yeah, support groups I found very useful. And the main ones I use are Discord. Because I joined a Facebook support group. My God, it was terrible. I never want to use it again. I would avoid Facebook support groups like the plague because it's just filled with bots. You don't get any answers from real people. And if you do, it's like one comment from a real person. And then you get about 10 comments from a bot saying, oh, this natural remedy cured me. Tag this random ass doctor. And it's all just a bunch of baloney as far as I'm concerned. So I would highly suggest Discord, or you can go on Reddit, or anything like that, really. And I'm going to plan to make my own Discord. So if anyone wants to join that, I can send out an invitation link. We can start our own support group. That'd be pretty cool. If you haven't used Discord before, it's just a online chat room pretty much. And to a point, you can sort of curate who joins it. So just be for people like us. And those sort of support groups are very helpful. So the next question. How do you handle social situations that involve food, like parties or dinners out? That is a recurring problem for me, actually. I'm just going to go back down to the town. The recurring issue for me is the going out to eat, because I will end up eating something that causes me pain. For instance, I go to these regular sort of business meetings. They're sort of business meetings, so it's just going to eat, really. And I'll end up getting like an English breakfast, which is a bunch of fried foods. And I know that I shouldn't really eat it. But when you're in that situation, and it's not that anyone's pressuring me to do anything, but it's almost a sort of pressure. Like, you look at the menu, and you're like, what's gonna mess me up the least? I'll get the full English breakfast. And then I know later that night, when it comes to bedtime, I'll be lying in bed and I'll be like, why did I do that? Because I'll be like curled up in pain. I know I shouldn't have done that. I'll start beating myself up saying, I should have known better. Got to make better decisions. And then That's where I find it very difficult. There's someone here. Oh, that's weird. Yeah, that's when I find it very difficult. The other part of the question was about parties, wasn't it? I've lost track of where I was. Support groups, long term. Oh yeah, parties and dinners out. So dinners, same thing. Parties, I'll be honest, I just don't go to parties. Because my past would be I'd go to a party, I'd feel insecure about myself, then I'd drink alcohol to mask that insecurity. That's something I just know about myself. So, and I don't drink. I haven't drunk any alcohol for quite a few years now, so I just don't go to them. I just stay here. Maybe some of you that sounds like upsetting or whatever, but I'd rather not go to a party. I feel good the next day, really. I mean, you can go to a party and not drink. I'm not saying that you can't do that, but that's just the way I choose to live. And that's it, really. Yeah, food I find can be a challenge. Like I said, there's that sort of, it's not pressure, but it feels like there's a mental pressure to eat something, and it's never something that's good for you, if you know what I mean. It's never something as healthy as like I could just make it at home. You know, it's like cooked in a clean way. So the next question: what long-term effects has ulcerative colitis had on your body? So if we're talking about potential long-term effects, there's always the risk of bowel cancer, which is quite terrifying. Long-term effects that I've experienced. Long-term effects. Well, I think I'm more sensitive to foods now. And I don't know if that's because I'm just more diligent with what I eat. So in a sense, that makes me more susceptible to, if I eat something bad, I feel it more. Or if that's just, to do with age, or it is to do with the disease. I don't know. Other long-term effects, I haven't noticed much, which is maybe a good thing, or maybe it's just something waiting for me in the years to come. I mean, taking these medications, who knows? Like, I'm taking azathioprine at the minute, and my infliximab infusion. Who knows how that's going to affect me in the years to come? Only I will find out. Hopefully, it won't affect me too much. But that is something like I think about a lot. Like, how can I get off of my medications? Like, what's my exit strategy? I don't have an exit strategy, but I'd like to try and figure out an exit strat. I'm just going to briefly retread old ground on this game. So the next question, this isn't the next question, but it's the one I'm looking at. Have you ever experienced a period of remission? How did it feel? I would say right now, touch wood, while I'm on these immunosuppressant medications, biological medications, the answer is yes. Before that, I'd say probably not. But there's two forms of remission. I can't remember. There's one's called clinical remission, which I've never been officially told whether I've had or not, and the other one is just remission of symptoms. Clinical remission would require a test, so they'd actually give you like a biopsy. They test your inflammation levels, and if your inflammation levels are non-existent, then you're in clinical remission. I can tell you my inflammation levels of my blood. I haven't had a colonoscopy in a bit. I've got all of my blood results on the NHS app, so I can load it up. And the thing that they track for inflammation is called CRP, C-reactive protein. I think that's what it's called. So if I go to test results and imaging, and then I can look at my test results, I can go down and find my CRP. Serum CRP. So it says that I am less than 1 milligram. So basically non-existent. So I don't know if that technically means I'm in clinical remission. I don't think so, because I think I'd have to have a biopsy from my bowel taken. And what remission feels like is it feels like normal life, except you have some fatigue occasionally, and if I eat the wrong thing, I still have cramps. So I don't know if that means I am truly in remission or not. You can sort of forget about it, except when you have to go for your blood tests and your IV. But the thing is, it's hard to forget about it because I spend so much time trying to be a healthier, better person, and it is just my life. That's just who I am. That's what I do. Oh, I blocked that. So the next question, that was a bit of a weird question. What does remission feel like? Yeah, it feels like before you got inflammatory bowel disease. And the next question, I need to just scroll on my question. Lost. How do you handle social events? Done that one. What signs do you look for that your condition is worsening? That's quite a good question. The first thing that I've noticed before any flare is very unnatural fatigue. And I just like to use the phrase unnatural fatigue because it just feels almost like an alien force has been put, it's been cast on you, that you feel very tired. And every time it's happened, I've sat there and I've thought, why am I so tired? Like, what did I do? What did I do? I blame myself. I think, what did I do to myself that's made me so tired? And then the next day I would flare. Like there would be some sort of symptom would arise. And then I think, oh, of course. Like, why did I think it was anything else? Just dispatch of this fellow here. Wow, that was a flurry. Get lost. Other things that might occur when you're starting to flare would be, I forgot what it's called, but it's when you go to the bathroom. It's called mucus. When you go to the bathroom, and it's almost like, the way I see it, it's almost like spit. Like if you spit, it kind of looks bubbly, doesn't it? And it looks like that. If you were to, and you pass that in the bathroom, the other thing I would notice is an increase in the amount of times I'm going to the bathroom. Maybe suddenly I'm going 4 times a day, 5 times a day. Now for me, on a normal day, I do, right now, I'm not flaring, I still go about 3 times a day. I just think I go to the toilet more often than others. But if it starts creeping up, maybe it's something to look at. Other things I'd notice, obviously, blood. If I saw blood, I'd think, oh, bloody hell, not again. There's the cramps. If cramps become very frequent, I'd say the biggest sign is actually when you get that feeling that you need to go to the toilet. Like a sudden, like, oh my God, we have to go to the toilet. That sort of feeling. If you're feeling that, then you know something's coming on. Because that's the sign that you're getting inflamed down there. What does this guy sell? Opens a resident key. Interesting. Yeah, so those are the main things that you'd notice if you're going to start flaring. Other than that, I can't think of much else that would happen. Maybe you get some random joint pains or random pains in your gut. It's a sign like inflammation levels are rising. That's why fatigue is like a very common one. So what's the next question? Got lost on my questions again. If it's experience with medications, have you ever needed surgery? Well, the answer to that is luckily No, I have not needed surgery. Unless you're counting colonoscopy as a surgery. I don't know if that actually counts. Do you know anyone else with colitis? Not in my day-to-day life. No. I did say I was friends, like, growing up with someone who had Crohn's. So I did know someone with Crohn's, but it's quite rare, I find. Other than the fact that you can find people on the internet, quite rare to actually find people day to day who have ulcerative colitis. But people aren't going to really, like, bring it up. Then that might be why it's quite hard to come across them. How does smoking or alcohol impact your system? So I've talked about these things briefly, but the way I found alcohol work for me was it would just make me feel rubbish. And I think from a technical perspective, it can increase your inflammation levels throughout your body, which is like the opposite thing of what we're trying to do. We're not looking to raise our inflammation levels. That's probably the worst thing that we could be doing, raising inflammation levels. So the best thing is to just avoid alcohol. I don't know why. I don't see a reason as to why, other than if you actually love alcohol. There's no reason to be drinking it because it's just going to, oh god, it's just going to be making you feel like that. See that fire? That's how you feel inside. Smoking is an interesting one because I haven't smoked for a very long time, but I do. And I didn't get this because I used to smoke. I hadn't smoked for ages, years and years. I chew Nicorette gum. Up to a little bit. Nicorette gum. So I do take nicotine, and there is links between nicotine being a positive thing for inflammatory bowel disease, for ulcerative colitis in particular. It's weird because this is where Crohn's and colitis can differ. There's some studies, or I don't know if it was a study or not, but there's some links between smoking, nicotine in particular, and it being a positive thing for ulcerative colitis, whereas it being the opposite for Crohn's. So I actually decided I'm going to take it into my own hands and chew nicotine gum just to try and see if that personally helps me. And I've found that it's been a positive experience chewing nicotine. And what I do is I chew, these are 2 milligrams. I chew one in the morning and one after dinner. And I found it to be a positive thing. Now, that's not many milligrams. I'll have you know. When I did a quick Google when I started, I was like, what's the addictive dose? Apparently it's 5 milligrams. I stayed under the addictive level, and I only take 4. So I haven't actually gone higher because I don't want to feel like addicted to it. I've never gone above that. I've always stuck to the 1 in the morning, 1 in the evening. The days when I've forgotten to even chew it, I've had like a recurring feeling of some symptoms returning. So I have felt that it has been of benefit to me, I feel. So yeah, it's interesting. I just realised I actually need to be on that bridge with the dragon. Not down here. Let's see the next question. So yeah, that's interesting. A lot of people are always surprised when I say that I chew nicotine gum, and they ask, "Do you smoke?" I'm like, "No, I don't smoke." And they're like, "Why the hell do you chew it then?" And there you go. That's my reason, my rationale, is it could help with inflammatory bowel disease, and I like to try everything. How does exercise impact your condition? I haven't seen any negative impacts. None. I need to try and not die here. Get up. Run, 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 run. Oh, God. There you go. I came here for this door. I haven't noticed a negative impact. Like I said earlier, when I was flaring very badly, I would oftentimes go and deadlift in the garden. I've never noticed heavy lifting to make flares worse, so I've used that to my advantage and I've done lifting. When I was in hospital and I was flaring really badly, I would walk around the hospital. I'd try and do as much exercise as I can, although the steroids that they prescribed me made my knees sort of lock up, so it was hard. But I like to squat, like sit like squatting in my chair, and I couldn't even do that. Like I couldn't bend my leg because of the steroids. I think it's because of it would make me retain water in my knees. So I couldn't do this, but I could walk, and I was walking like an old man. I tell you, when I was in the hospital, I was shuffling, but I was trying to do as much as possible. And I think movement is key because it can. I just think it can help with your healing, reduce inflammation, get your blood pumping around your body. Very useful in general. I've only seen positive impact from it, but I wouldn't suggest if you haven't lifted heavy weights before to go straight into it because it's just something I was conditioned to. So I felt very confident in myself to do it, even though I was bleeding inside. I just want to throw that out there. I would start light, start small, go for walks, that sort of thing. So we've got a question here. How does the anxiety that ulcerative colitis causes affect your mental health? So that's a good question. And like I said before, it's like when you've had a flare, it's like a trauma, a mental trauma. So it's the fact that you can be scared to use the bathroom. It's like when I was flaring very badly, I would try and hold it in because you don't want to go through that feeling of it coming out. You don't want to go through the feeling of the pain and the suffering of going to the bathroom. So I held it in. It would make me feel depressed because I felt like my life's over. It would make you feel worried. I'd feel anxious, like terrified I'm not getting enough sleep. Is it going to develop into bowel cancer? Worries are coming from all directions, everywhere. But the best way to deal with it is to just accept that this is your situation. This is the cards that you've been dealt, and yes, it does suck, but there are treatments available. And when I phoned my specialist quite a lot during this time when I was going to hospital because I was just worried all the time, and I said to her how I felt, and she said to me, "Look, you're not going to die of blood loss. It might look drastic, but you won't die from blood loss. I promise you that, because it's not that much blood. It's not as much blood as you're thinking." So that was one thing that helped. The other thing is if you do live somewhere like the UK, you've got your non-emergency line, which is 111. And I've used that a number of times. When I'm in a state, I have been in states of panic before. When I'm in those states of panic, like I'm like, what do I do? Flare into no end. I don't know what to do. How do I get through this? I phoned up the non-emergency line and gone to see a doctor. And that's what it's there for, you know. I felt like I was in a mental crisis. And yes, it's just sleeping on it as well. Because you'll wake up tomorrow and it'll be just that little bit less anxiety inducing if you've had a good sleep. So the best thing is just sleep, really. Sleep can just help you mentally feel more ready for these sort of things. But the thing is, once you've been through these sort of things, it's like you're stronger. It gives you resilience, you know. Once you've been through a flare, you know what it's like. You're like, okay, I'm gonna go through this terrible thing. I know what to expect. It's gonna suck. But we're here now. What is up with this dog? Yeah, so it's almost like it can help you grow a thicker skin, basically. These dogs are quite tough. There you go. But yeah, that's how I deal with it. So question here: how often do you see your doctor for checkups? So my doctor, I mean specifically my GP, I never see my GP. My specialist, I see, I think twice a year or even once a year. So not very often. It's sort of like the onus is on me to contact them, which can be a bit rubbish. I would like more. I'd like to have more of those checkups, if I'm honest. I think it would be beneficial. And actually, one thing I've been trying to do is they are very busy, which sucks. But one thing I've been trying to do is get my specialist to come on camera and talk, answer some like questions. I think that would be amazing to have a video interview with my specialist and hopefully get them on the channel again. That's something I'm working towards, but yeah. So there's a question here. What myths about colitis do you think need to be debunked? So, I mean, the main thing that just annoys me is when people give you unsolicited advice that have no idea they're talking about. And it's coming from a place of like care and they want to help. But, oh God, it's locked. It's just not something that I'm interested in. Like, basically, I've had a lot of times when I'll bring up... I remember when I was first diagnosed, actually, I was working... I've got to go to the shop here now. I was working for this guy as a cleaner. And he would be like, what are you eating? Is it, you know... And then they talk about IBS. It's people getting it mixed up with IBS that bugs me the most. It's just completely different. I've got a question here. Have you got an IBD nurse? So I do have an assigned IBD nurse. That's the person I have my like checkups with. But over the years, it's become very hard to talk to them. They're basically always busy. And I know every NHS trust works differently. Mine initially was email based. And then they took away the email. And I loved emails because it's like I can send, say I'm panicking at night. I can send the email at 1 a.m. when I'm up late and be like, I've sent an email. I can feel better about it. You know, the weight has been lifted off my mind. But then they've changed that. You can't send them emails. And it literally says, we will not check these emails now. But I would... Is there someone following me? Oh, there is. So now you have to phone up between, I think, 9 and 11:30 a.m. So there's a small window where I can actually talk to them. And our phone, it used to be my nurse would answer the phone and I talked to my nurse straight away. Now, I talk to like a receptionist and the nurse will leave a comment on the NHS app. So it's like, now I've become very distant, like I can't even talk to the nurse now. And then it would be a nurse, like the last time I got a comment from the nurse, it wasn't even my nurse, it was a nurse from a hospital in a completely different town. So I don't know what's going on. I just think the NHS is like struggling. It's become very hard to talk to my specialist nurse, which is a shame because I get on with her really well. And like I said, she was keen to come and be in videos, but it's just so hard to talk to her. I can't arrange anything because I can't get the opportunity to talk to her. So the next question is, we've done myths. I've talked about this. It's how do you keep a positive outlook despite the challenges? I'm just going to save this guy quickly. This is the guy I was looking for. He's going to sell me spells. So now I should be able to go back to town and then buy some spells. But maintaining a positive attitude, really a lot of it comes down to doing this sort of thing. Making videos, talking about my experiences. Like some of the comments I've got on my videos have been it's been very nice to read. There'll be like people, a lot of older people who said like, I've just been diagnosed. I think I remember one comment was like, oh, everyone should watch this video when they get diagnosed. It's quite amazing to see and to read. Even though my videos, they don't get too many views, it seems the people who do end up watching it, it helps them out a lot, which is very touching. And that's what keeps me positive about everything, really. And the more of these resources I can make, the better. And I think not enough people really talk about it, to be honest, because it's something that I'm guessing a lot of people find very embarrassing. It's to do with your bum. But just being able to talk about it, I think, is huge. Dispatch this man. Oh, there's an item down there. Just going to head back and try and get some of these spells. So the next question. Positive outlook. How does sleep or lack of it affect your symptoms? So we've talked about this quite a lot. Lack of sleep. I'll tell you, let's put it this way. Currently, I'm doing okay. I'm on these biological medications, keeping me kind of healthy. I think if I was to stay up all night for days in a row, stop looking after my sleep, I think I would start flaring again. I think I would be in a lot worse health. And even if it didn't cause me to flare, I would feel terrible. But yeah, when you get sleep, everything feels possible. So, do you have any tips for travelling with ulcerative colitis? Yeah, so always make sure you got your meds on you. If you are in a state where you are flaring, so you're going to need to use the bathroom, then you might want to research that ahead of time. What bathrooms are nearby? Know your bathroom stops. But if you're in a healthy state and your meds are controlling it, then you don't really need to think too much about it. But just make sure you got your meds with you. Because sometimes, I don't know, you make sure you bring it in like a packet that shows the medications. Because I didn't read what he said. Yeah, just make sure that you've got your meds in a box in case they think it's some random ass drugs. And maybe even have like a note of your prescription or whatever. So that would be what I do for travelling. How can employers better accommodate employees with ulcerative colitis? That's an interesting question. Something that I think is very important. I worked on this video for the NHS a while ago, which was about reasonable adjustments in the workplace for people with autism. And I think it's taking that approach. Having reasonable adjustments is what employers should do. So the approach I do is just tell your employer and what's up with you. Make sure that your employer knows that you have inflammatory bowel disease. And then as long as there's an understanding there from your employer that they're okay, you know, they understand that that's what you're going through. You tell them, lay it out like this could happen. If I do flare, I need to use the bathroom. I might need to use it frequently. And if they're not okay with that, then maybe it's time to look for a different job. It's like my most recent job. I just took that approach. I told them how it was from the start. I said, this is my situation. Oh, 200 damage. That's huge. So that's it, really. Reasonable adjustments. I think it should be, it's more than reasonable to allow someone with inflammatory bowel disease to use the bathroom more often. I think that's very reasonable. And I think anyone with the condition would agree that that is completely reasonable. The next question. What has surprised you the most about living with colitis? What surprised me? I mean, it doesn't surprise me at all these days, but I mean, initially, What surprised me was the bleeding. What surprised me is the amount that you can feel that you're bleeding and be okay at the end of the day. I think that's what surprises me. Sort of the resilience of the body. Like, you can be in such a state and still be going. That is very surprising. That'd be the main thing. The next question is, do you ever feel isolated because of your condition? How do you deal with that? So these days, I don't feel so isolated because there's so many communities online. If I wasn't on the internet as much, I definitely would. And I probably wouldn't talk about it much. Because, yeah, if you wouldn't want to go up to some randomer in the street and start talking about it. Although, it'd be a bit weird to just go on about your problems to a randomer. The time that I did feel isolated, actually, and it did make me feel worse, was I remember we got this. I've got this family WhatsApp chat, so there's lots of extended family in there, and I'd done this YouTube video, which is the first video on this channel, and I basically explained what it was like going to hospital, like what put me in hospital, and I think it was quite a well-made video, to be honest. And I posted it in the family chat because I was quite pleased with, like, I've made this video, quite proud to share it off. And then this guy from my family, he says, "This is disgusting. I don't think people should be able to talk about this," or whatever. And I said, "Don't worry, you'll never hear from me again." So I left the chat. And then I just genuinely enraged after that, because I thought he could have just not watched the video. He could have just left the video. Like, if he's not interested, then don't watch it. But it's the fact he probably watched the video, then was like, "I'm going to tell you how much I hate this video, and I think that it's horrible that you're talking about it. I don't want to hear about it." And I just was like, I haven't got time for this. I don't care if you're in my family or not. I'm done. And I left the group chat. That was terrible. I mean, I understand people don't want to hear about problems. They don't want to watch. Some people don't want to watch that sort of thing. But just the way he worded it, I was just like, why did you say it that way to me? I thought his behaviour towards me was disgusting. I really did. Right, so the next question. I'm gonna have to fire through these. My throat is very sore. I'm gonna have to get more used to doing these longer live streams. Where did I get to? What surprised you? Do you ever feel isolated? What's the one thing you wish people understood about ulcerative colitis? One thing I wish people understood. The one thing I wish people understood about colitis is sometimes diet won't stop you flaring. Just simply changing your diet doesn't make it go away. And it's just going back to that unsolicited advice when people were like, "Have you tried eating this? Have you tried eating that?" Especially when, like, I know that they don't even know what IBD is. They think it's irritable bowel syndrome. They don't know what it's like. I'm just like, I think if people saw the outcomes of flares, they would have very different feelings. That's it, because it's like an invisible disease. It's a bloody ice cream truck coming. I'm just going to close the window. So you can hear it's very loud. That is so distracting her in this ice cream truck. They sound so creepy as well. What was I even saying? Yeah, people, they just don't understand what it's like, because it's like, I remember someone said to me when I was in hospital, they're like, "You look like the image of health," like because had some muscle from lifting. I'm not fat, and I was lying in the hospital bed, and it's just the fact people don't see. They don't see the bad sides of it. They don't see. They don't see the blood. They don't see the pain. That's what I mean. It's invisible. So I think that would be. I'd like people to understand that just because you look healthy doesn't mean that you are. And that could go for quite a few conditions. Let's just quickly run through these people. So I've got one last question here and then we'll wrap this up because I've been talking for a long time. My throat does not like that. The last question is, how has your perspective on life changed since your diagnosis? So my perspective on life, I mean, it's changed a lot because when I was diagnosed, I was sort of just turned 20 and now I'm in my 30s. So as a result of that, my perspective on life has changed regardless, but I'll try and keep it to just about how ulcerative colitis has changed my perspective. It's just being happy for how you feel on the good days. I remember when I was walking, I think this was like the day before I felt terrible. I remember just walking out in the sun and I was just grateful that I felt good that day. I was grateful that the sun was out. I was grateful that I was healthy that day to be able to walk around. And it's just, yeah, I'd say that. It's just being grateful for the good days. And then it's just accepting the low days. Like, you have to take the good with the bad because it's always a balance, isn't it? There's always going to be bad days. Always. And that's why I think accepting that is the path to being happy. If you can accept that there are going to be bad days, it's not going to be so hard when they hit you. And that's the thing. These bad days, they will happen regardless whether you accept them or not. So if you can get into a headspace where you're okay with it, it's just going to make the whole situation easier to live with. So, yeah, acceptance. Yeah, and then I do think about what would happen if I wasn't diagnosed with ulcerative colitis. What would my life have been like? Would I have carried on drinking? Maybe. It was sort of a wake-up call to be like, you need to look after your body, And it's almost like I have to look after my body more so than other people because the consequences of me not doing so end up being greater. Like, people can get away with other people can get away with bad decisions and it'll catch up with them later in years. For me, it's days, hours sometimes, I might eat something like a pizza and say person A is healthy, they have the pizza, they feel fine. Maybe they even feel great. They feel fine. Let's just say they feel fine. Person B, that's me, eats the pizza. Half an hour later, I'm on the floor in pain. I mean, and that could happen if you've got celiac disease or you're lactose intolerant. Do you know what I mean? If you've got a condition of any kind, it's almost like it's amplified. It happens faster and sooner. You feel the pain and suffering sooner. Whereas person A, they might continuously eat pizza. They won't notice that for years, 30 years. Then they notice, oh my God, my health is in disrepair. But you've had 30 years to address it. But we have wake-up calls that say if you don't look after your health, you're screwed. So we have so much more impetus to look after ourselves, make sure that we are eating the right things, because we're punished for it if we don't. Like, well, I'm punished for it. If I eat something out of pleasure, I'm punished for it. I feel like I'm becoming invigorated here, enraged, maybe you could say. But it's true. It is true. So that's how my perspective has changed. Oh wow, there's some guys here who's listening to me rants. You know what, fellas? I'll leave you to it. So, any last minute questions from you guys? I'll leave it open for a couple minutes and then I'm really going to have to go. We will watch these burning bodies as we think last questions come in. It's been great to talk and I want to do these maybe once a week. What am I drinking? This is water. Big glass bottle. Let me pull it out for you. It needs a wash. It's got a bit of a weird colour, but this is just water and I carry this with me everywhere. I'm just drinking it so frequently because my throat is hurting, but 2 litres of water. Take it with me everywhere. And I got a glass bottle so I don't have to drink out of plastic, but this is my sidekick. Bring it absolutely everywhere with me. And if I don't, then I immediately feel thirsty. It's not even that I am even thirsty in the moment. I'm just like, where's my bottle? And then knowing that I don't have my bottle makes me thirsty. Everyone's always like shocked when I pull this out. It's so big. I'll pull it out at work, put it on the table. I mean, everyone knows about it now, but I'll be carrying my bottle with me. Can't go anywhere without it. And then here, I was drinking this at the start of the live stream. It was a peppermint tea, which I made it in anticipation for my throat to hurt. Right. I'm going to head back to the checkpoint. We made some good progress on the game anyway when I was talking. We got one boss down. Got some spells. I've been wanting to play this game for a little while. Oh god. The guard in the doorway. And that's it. Right, so if you enjoyed this live stream, I thank you so much for watching. It's been a pleasure to talk about my experiences, and like I said, I plan on doing more of these. I do have in the description a link to this PDF that I put together a little while ago, and I've wrote down as much information as I could to make it's just a short, concise PDF that gets emailed to you if you do click the link. And I just talk about things I've talked about here. I talked about sleep, diet, supplements I take, exercise, and if you do sign up to that, it'll be a mailing list basically. And I won't spam you because I haven't even sent any emails out apart from people signing up for the PDF. But if anything cool does come up, I can let you know through that system. And if you have enjoyed this and you're not subscribed, love it if you tap that subscribe button. Really helped me out. I've been loving making this channel. I've been watching it grow. There's been so many people with inflammatory bowel disease coming together here. It's been really cool. I don't see many channels like this, so hopefully we can grow, spread the information. If the channel grows big, I've got, I'd love to get some specialists on, IBD nurses, other people specialise in this field, bring them on to talk about things. That would be absolutely amazing. So I'll keep you updated. And yes, I'm going to try and do one of these once a week, maybe once every 2 weeks, depending on how my voice keeps up, because I've got a lot of content to film. So. And this whiteboard just here, I've got loads of ideas. Very interesting. Looking forward to more. But yes, thank you so much. And I will see you on the next live stream or video.